There
There
we
we
go.
go. First
There we
time,
go.
first time the recording didn't start, so we're gonna go again. So welcome again to the empowered post. Welcome to the Empowered Podcast, where we walk through some empowerment tips, and I interview people around empowerment and just what they do in this world. So this is Luke. Yeah, I'd love for you just to share a little bit. What do you do and where you're at the moment?
Yeah, cool, man. Thanks for having us on. To all the people listening and watching. Yeah, so just having name's Luke, father of two from Western Australia. We're currently traveling around Australia in a caravan, sharing our projects, sharing our passions. Sort of November last year, we decided to sell up our beautiful home, get on the road and create some core memories with our family. And I'm a coach and a business advisor. So that's sort of like first port of call, which is great to be on the road and do, just having conversations with people, seeing where they're stuck, seeing where we can help out. I'm also on the board of Men's Hub WA, so expanding that, and I own a cacao brand. So Hydration Organics, which I guess it's all really feeds in all the projects that we're involved in. It's great to be on the road and having conversations with people and really hearing what they're going through and how we can support in that space. And even if we can't support them, linking them up with people that we can as we're sort of growing network, growing community, helping people do different things. So, yeah, pretty currently in Esperance, a beautiful part of the world. Did some really cool hikes and some beautiful beaches down here yesterday. And yeah, now having another cool conversation with you, brother. So thanks for having us on.
Yeah, pleasure to have you here. Thank you. And yeah, so my first sort of question for you is, what does personal empowerment mean to you?
Well, good question. For me, it's really diving into the vision of who you are. What are your values? What are your standards? And then being able to live in that. What does that look like in regards to? So for me, I have a very holistic approach to life. So I like to bring that holistic, sort of cultivating ecosystem. So if I talk in that space, what's the ecosystem of myself that I'm trying to create? What are the different pillars of that? If we think about health, wealth, career, uh, community, relationships, what do those look like for me? And when I'm empowered in that space, then I'm connected to those from a functional point of view. And I live in my values and my standards with them. I know my boundaries. I know where I put my energy. We have a mantra that's sort of like align the output of our energy with the vision of the inputs we wish to receive. And the more that I believe we do that, the more empowered I become, the more in my zone, in my lane of genius I am, and the more the world seems to shift in a beautiful way around me.
Powerful. And how do you see your understanding of empowerment has grown over time?
Um, I think when I was younger, I put my value in the level of what I gave to others. So I attached my value with an external metric, and it was very much I felt empowered because I was helping, right, or I was doing things for others, and I was receiving validation, I was receiving love. Now that's definitely shifted to what's right for me, what feels alive for me, and following that more so than doing it for other people. So doing it for myself rather than others is probably the simple version of that. And that's definitely changed in the look, schooling, I guess schooling and society conditions us to try and fit in that space and try and make everyone happy. And that was definitely my journey in that space, especially in the schooling of trying to be everyone's friend. And then if I look at that as I grew older, that led to me to over giving, trying to over deliver, attaching my sense of worth to what I heard coming back from other people. And so when I switched that, I guess flipped that switch to, well, actually, how do I define my own sense of worth? What does that look like for me? What's going to make me feel empowered? What's going to make me feel alive? What's going to make me feel like the purest expression of who I am and what I'm here to do? And that completely changed the game for me in that space.
Mm. So yeah, what I'm hearing there in like different words is sort of you've you've redefined the value system. So rather than sort of needing this value or love in a way from others, you've started bringing that love to yourself and that value to yourself, despite what you're giving out, or despite how much other people are sort of seeing you or valuing you for your output.
Yeah, absolutely, man. Yeah, absolutely. I think one of the things when in my journey with people pleasing in particular, one of the switches that was really relevant for me was recognizing that one, I was doing that for looking for love, but in doing so, I was actually holding myself back from the greatest love of all, which is the love of myself. And that once I actually started to shift that inward, recognizing that showing up in the way that I'm supposed to, but also call the people in that are supposed to love me at that level, right? And then you actually receive the love that you're looking for by being more of yourself. And I think it's a cool shift. And I guess one of the big tools in that was sort of diving into the topics of soul contracts and understanding those contracts and how they play out. But okay, well, if I'm not willing to stand in my boundary because I'm scared of upsetting someone or losing someone, maybe I'm not meeting the contract that I've actually got with that person. And I'm actually holding them back from fulfilling their contract with me because maybe their role is to actually teach me how to set boundaries within a relationship and be okay with losing in friendship, so to speak, because I chose myself over choosing someone else. Once I started to play around with that, I was like, oh, wow, that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, for sure. And so my thing that I've especially come to a lot recently is behind a lot of that is what I see is like the nervous system. And so we were so ingrained in tribes that if we didn't fawn, being one of the nervous system responses, and sort of please others, there was the potential that we'd be cast out by the tribe into the jungle and killed, or these kind of things. So do you feel like that plays a role as well, or do you find that
Yeah,
you did was in sort of soul contracts?
oh, that plays a role as well, for sure. We're like mammals by nature, right? So, again, bringing that very holistic approach, I like to sort of look at things from an energetical, a physical, and a spiritual level. So, bringing all three of those pillars and trying to align, one of my, I guess, core philosophies that I try to live by is that there's three pathways of energy through the body: the physical, the energetical, and the spiritual. And so, all of those different pathways have different restrictions, have different ways in which we relate to them. And herd dynamics is probably that physical aspect of the tribe and the community and the way in which we're wired, right? And that doesn't just play out in the way in which we show up in our relationships, but also in like a marketing sense and the way in which our businesses operate. There's a reason why the 3s, the 5s, the 7s are the tools, is because psychologically they create that odd number, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then by attaching that to the odd number, you're then creating that whole. So it creates an even number. No different in social groups. It's like there's always usually when there's either even numbers or there's an odd number. And if there's an odd number, there's usually always a pecking order where someone feels like they're the odd one out. They always feel like they're on the verge of getting kicked out of the group, right? It's interesting one, because I think a lot of people would experience that herd dynamics, especially, for lack of a better word, going through an awakening or coming back into themselves, remembering who they are, coming home to themselves. There's those moments where your current dynamic or your current social herd, so to speak, starts to shift. And if you're the first one within that herd to sort of go down that pathway of coming back into yourself, especially we're talking about people pleasing here. So if you're a people pleaser and you start to shift that, all of a sudden your herd is going to respond. And they're going to go, are you okay? What's going on? Something's changed. We don't like this because no longer are we getting energy from you. So it's just an important one for people to really understand what goes on, because it helps you navigate it. You understand, you see it. And awareness is a great tool to have. Awareness takes it from being that scary monster that we don't know anything about over under the bed to like, oh, we now have awareness of this and we can make a choice about it. And the herd dynamics is a massive one to understand, because it does come up when you start to make changes in your life. And if you're the first one within that dynamic to do it, then there's going to be a challenge. Kerwin Gray, the late Kerwin Gray, had a great way of explaining it in regards to when you make changes in your life, start setting boundaries and put structures in, the leader of the pack will attack. So if you're not the leader in that friendship group, no different to a pack of dogs, the leader will start to bark at you first and foremost. It's like, get back in line, mate. Get back in line. And if you don't, then all of a sudden they start to nip at the heels. And then you might find one or two of the dogs within the pack start to nip as well. And if you don't get back in line, if you don't get back into the usual way that that pack dynamic operates, then they run you out of the pack. You know, and that's where a lot of people get stuck in, I think. And you touched on it beautifully in regards to that survival aspect of we're not taught how to be self-sufficient from a young age. We're not taught that we have all that we need right here within our heart space to function and be the fullest expression of ourselves. We're taught to rely on others. We're taught to look for that savior. And so when we start to think about, well, what happens if I do step out of this, what I know and this what I'm comfortable in, it puts that survival mechanism to the test. Yeah. And if you don't have that community, if you don't have that structure, if you don't have you haven't associated a higher value on where you want to go rather than where you are right now, it's so easy to fall back into that space and to just fall back in line, so to speak.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, I think one of my favorite things is reflecting sometimes on, like, we think we're so evolved and this like really evolved species, but then there's this total primal part of us that is just like, no, we're still so animalistic, primal survival mode. Like, and understanding that has been one of the empowerment pieces in my journey, and being like, oh yeah, okay, there's still these parts of me that's competitive or that are whatever it is, and becoming, again, like as you said, becoming aware of it. So like the first step in any shift, in any empowered movement, is that awareness. And once you're aware of something, you can start changing things, you can take actions. Yeah,
absolutely.
So can you tell me about a specific moment in your life when you felt truly empowered?
Oof. Recently it's been making this decision to get on the road. Man, like just to, you know, do what most would call is a little bit insane, but to sell the Set for Life home, which was, you know, wasn't as easy, or wasn't as hard as most probably think, being that we'd already done the get out of the Set for Life career thing. That was probably the major one, leaving the mining industry and going all in on myself, and choosing to, this is what I love doing, I'm going to go and do that. And then the synchronicities off the back of that. And I think for me, that was sort of 4.5, 5 years ago now. And to then do it again on another level, like choosing to sell the home and get on the road and do what we're doing, was taking that to a whole new level. It was, if I think about leaving, leaving the mines, and that was great. But I sort of still didn't fully choose 100% of what I would love to do. I fell back onto things out of survival to just like pay the bills and do those sorts of things, right? And still it was way better because I was running my own show, I was running my own hours, but it wasn't fully what I wanted to be doing. Now it's like, you know, I can see the difference in the way in which, one, I show up in the world, but also the way in which the universe has rewarded that action in regards to the synchronicities, the opportunities, the way in which things have been coming together. And so, yeah, there's definitely layers to it. And it's cool to see those and experience those different levels of it. And again, we all get more specificity the more we take action towards the vision. We get more specificity about what we actually love. You know, as we leave parts of ourselves behind, shift different levels of identity, we get more clarity, we get more specificity. There's less, I guess, shifting the flow of that energy into a dysfunctional space, and it's more alignment and more functional. So that's definitely that moment we sort of went, let's do this, and we fully stepped into it. So that was very empowering.
Yeah. So what do you feel was like, what's the emotion, or what's that drive, or what's the instinct that sort of creates that empowered feeling?
For me, it's a knowing. It's just like this calm, grounded knowing that you're doing the thing. You know, there's like this pool of like, you know, if you think about your soul, for example, being pulled to home or pulled to true north. It's like, oh, boom, there it is. If you're like water finding, so to speak, I do using the prongs and water finding. Like, I imagine that was sort of the feeling for me. It was like I've been slowly getting more and more in that space of alignment. And all of a sudden, it was like there was no longer two opposing forces in the way I was showing up. I think if you think about the way a majority of people live their life, there's what they would love to be doing, and there's what they're doing. And that's constantly in opposition. There's two energetic bodies essentially living, and that's very, very tiring.
Yeah.
And so for me, it was like there was this coming together in that space, and there was just this grounded knowing of, oh, wow, like, this is cool.
Yeah. So, like, in other words, that feeling of like, I've made the choice that I wanted to make, and the things that I thought was stopping me before are no longer stopping me. Like, I've made that.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Sort of like almost like climb to the top of the mountain kind of feeling in a way. Would you?
Yeah, you can explain it. Yeah, like that for sure. Like you've met that point, and then it's, I think what was important, what was important on the other side of that was like you don't get comfortable. I think it's easy to then go, oh, fuck, it's all going to just happen now. And I see this a lot, I guess, in the wellness space of like you do the things and you take the action and it feels really good and you feel really empowered, and then it's just put the hand back up in the air and think the universe is going to take you for a ride to the other side. It's like, no, it's like, well, now you've got this feeling, how do you cultivate more of it? How do you take the actions? How do you keep it happening? It's very easy to fall back into the old habits as well. So,
so I guess,
that's been,
that'll be my next question as well for you, that may also enlighten both of us in this, is what do you feel is the best tactic to stay in that empowered place of choice and not to fall back into, say, if someone's listening and they're wanting to go for their dream, they're wanting to go for their vision, their empowered choice, and they're still kind of falling back into these things for survival. What do you think is the best to stay in that?
Structures and support. You've got to have the right support, someone that's a couple of years ahead of where you want to be. Where you want to be, they're where you want to be in the next year or two. You're going to have that support of someone who can just help guide you through that space. And it's not about giving you the answers. It's about supporting you and holding you while you navigate them for yourself. But I'm a big believer in making sure you've got a coach that's ahead of where you're at. So for me, my coach is doing the things that I want to be doing in sort of 5 years' time, and so that's really important for me. And then structures and support. It's, the structures and the freedom. Like, structure is what creates the freedom for me. And I grappled with this coming from a very structured and rigid corporate mining space. When I've come out, if you think about the pendulums, right, I was very much in that masculine drive space. And so when I came out of that, I just threw it all away and went very into the feminine. No structure, all flow, just let the universe take me for a ride. And that doesn't work either. And so it's about finding that balance point between how can I put the structures into my life that I know support and nourish me to allow my mind to let go enough to allow the flow of my creativity to come through. And that's for me what structure does. The mind wants to know the path, it wants to know the steps. And when we have structures in our lives, it becomes very freedom orientated. It's the structure that allows the freedom of that flow. And I didn't realize that when I first started. I just threw the structure away. It went very much into creativity and flow, and it spade the structures and the support that allowed me to swing, because there's still the swing. You still need to swing across those pendulums in the different areas, right? You need to go functional to dysfunctional to see where those limitations are to allow the growth. But now I do it a lot more intentionally. So if I feel that there's a block or there's something resistance coming up, I'll intentionally go into the chaos of that. And I think you've got to be prepared to, the more aligned, the more outward of that alignment becomes, the more internal you have to be prepared to go. The deeper you need to be prepared to go within yourself. And for me, the internal is the real business of the external. So, being prepared to go into those depths and having the support to be able to do it. In a space to be able to think when you're in leadership positions and when you're leading and when you're moving forward, it's super important to have a space where you don't have to lead, where you can just show up. So, look, this is what's coming up for me. This is the scarcity's coming up, this fear's coming up, but this is where my mind's at. What's going on here? And just having some opportunity for reflections, just having someone that can hold you through that and go, well, do you believe that? It's true. And sometimes you just need that third person perspective.
Yeah. Yeah. One of the great sayings, it's hard to see the box when you're in it.
Yeah, absolutely, man. The Celts, so my lineage is Celtic, and so they have a great phrase called the Anamkara, which means soul friend. And that's born from the belief that the retinas are the windows to the soul. And as the retinas have blind spots, so too must the soul look at the reflection. And so those soul friends, or the Anamkara, are there to see those, not only see those blind spots for you, but to also hold you accountable to them and speak them into existence for you so that you can see them yourself. I think that's just that in a nutshell of, having that support that's not just there to see you and talk about it behind your back, but to see it and then bring it to your attention so that they can hold you in that vision. Having other people that know your vision, that understand it and can hold you accountable to it is so important.
Mm-hmm. And would you say on that sort of topic as well, reflecting back, it was also really important to give yourself that love and acceptance to sometimes go back into creating money in a certain way or whatever it was, and seeing in a way that you were not that same person still in that job, and you were still going for your vision. And do you feel like that's still important as well, to sort of appreciate that part?
Oh yeah, absolutely. And I have great gratitude for all the lessons and everything that I learned, even in the mining space as well. And all the things that created for us. I think we can come at it with a fixed mindset, or we can come at it from a growth mindset and understand that those were very, very important aspects of what we're doing right now, who we've become. But we're no longer that person. No different in relationships, I think. And you've got to, like, I'm not the man that Elise fell in love with originally. I've changed and I've shifted, and vice versa. She's a completely different woman to the young lady that I fell in love with. And so if I still see her in that mold of that young lady, we can't grow, and we can't. It's like a beautiful coming together. And if I look at a lot of different things in life, they're all weaves and they're all a dance, right? There's this coming together and there's going this part, and we do that ourselves. We come together and we fall in love with ourselves, and then we learn new things about ourselves, and we dive into the depths, and we sort of separate in that space, and then we've got to come back together and fall in love with ourselves again. And that's important, and that happens in relationships, that happens in the way in which we're, like, what we class as work or what we're doing in life and our relationships. And there's this beautiful coming together and growing apart. And it's important that we can acknowledge that we're not that person anymore, but we can also acknowledge that we might not be exactly where we want to be, but we can see the step to where we're going, and that this is a functional decision in relation to the vision. I think that's important, to not beat ourselves up over big visions. Take time to bring to fruition, and it doesn't happen overnight, and sometimes you have to take a side step to take that step forward. I think it's important not to beat ourselves up if we have to do that.
100%. Yeah, I think it's just that really important empowered mindset view, as you said.
Yeah,
being able to sort of just accept all of these lessons as they come, and to be able to see them as these sort of positive tools that are going to progress you to where you want to go, even if it's not where you want to be right in that moment.
Yeah, and I think on the other side of that too, understanding that our focus does create our reality, and the results that we are having are based off of the choices that we've made too. And so it's taking that radical self-responsibility of, like, well, why aren't I in that space yet? Okay, well, what are the choices that I've made so far? And how is my flow of energy out into the world calling this in for me? So what's my responsibility in that? What have I created? Is it the way that I've been showing up in this space? Is it the way that I've been resonating in this space that's led me to here? And just understanding and having that awareness, again, not to beat ourselves up, but in order to learn, to mine the gold of it, so that when we take the next step, we can see those aspects and go, oh, cool, well, that's what I did last time. That resulted in this. Well, how about we try something different? And we still might not take the right step or the most aligned step, because we're always battling all of those different things of shadow and ego and all the different aspects, but we're still taking a step. And that's better than not stepping. You're going to get more awareness. And I think that's the big thing with creating, is that you have the vision and you take steps towards it. You don't need to know every step. You just take the first one and have faith that the next step appears after that. And you might take 5 steps to the left, but as long as they're still, slightly facing forward, we're still moving. We might even take a couple of steps backwards, and that's okay. And then we just realign and go, cool, sweet, what did I learn in that? What was there for me? How can I show up differently as I step forward this time?
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, just a little piece that I want to draw out there and just pop back into the space again, which is just that reminder of like that personal power in like taking full responsibility for where you are, in a sense of like not blaming everything on yourself, but being really aware and being like, oh, okay, these decisions helped create this situation. So what's my part? How can I take full ownership of my actions and my choices into the future so that I make the best of all the situations that are presented to me?
Yeah, absolutely. Realizing that you're the predominant creative force in your life is very, very scary, but very humbling and very empowering. It's like, geez, I've created this, good, bad, and ugly. Cool, I can choose to create something different.
Yeah.
Or you can go, oh man, I created this, I'm an idiot. Like, there's 2 pathways there. So it's like, my advice is to choose the other one, but again, everyone's entitled to make the choice they want to make as well.
I think sometimes, reflecting back on my own journey, sometimes it was really important for me to choose I'll quotation it, negative path. And sometimes I still choose that on purpose. Like I'm in an empowered moment and I have all these emotions coming up and I go, okay, I could choose to like transmute this energy and create with it or do something with it. And I'm like, well, actually, I just want to feel this emotion and allow myself to like cry or to be in that sadness or whatever it is, and that's like, that is also a power in that as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I think once you can shift your mindset to all of those moments don't hold power over us, they hold power for us. So really, that's a beautifully empowering space to be in. I think as humans, we spend so much time trying to be perfect that we forget about the whole idea of being human is to be imperfectly human and just go into the spectrums and to feel it all. If we reject, again, if we're talking about unconditional love, right? If we reject those parts of ourselves, if we reject those emotions, we reject a part of ourselves. And how can we receive the unconditional love of others if we can't receive the unconditional love of ourselves? By allowing us to feel, by allowing us to express. If we hold that premise that in the energetic and spiritual sense we're connected to all time and space, then we come here to experience the physical. And so to push ourselves away from the physical and to limit that experience is missing the point of being here for me. It's the same as the wealth discussion and the money discussion that gets a lot of people stuck in that scarcity space. It's like, well, if you're here to experience all spectrums of life, everything that comes with the physical and the 3D reality, you're here to experience it all. So experience it. Don't hold yourself back from experience it. Have fun. Do all the things that you want to do and create a life that allows you to do them. But don't reject those parts of yourself that want those things either, because then you are rejecting part of yourself. All good if you want to be completely of service, right? And just go be super transient and be of service and not receive anything in return and do every single part of you from a place of being of service. And no different if we use Jesus as an example, right? Without turning this into a religious space, he was of service, right? There was no desire for anything in return. If he got a loaf of bread, if he got a place to sleep, sweet. And I see so many people that say they want to be of service without understanding the connotation and the intention behind that. Of service means that you want to be of service. And so the universe will give you people that you want to be of service to. But majority of people, in my experience, don't want to live that way. They want to have nice things. They want to have some of the luxuries of 3D world, of the physical reality of internet, phones, nice places to live, nice clothes, nice food, like those sorts of things. And they're part of the physical experience. But they don't come when you're just freely giving your energy. They come when you see yourself as a service. Because when you see yourself as a service, you automatically assign a value to your greatest currency, which is your time and your life force. And then the universe rewards that, in my experience, of bringing people in that actually value that. And there creates an exchange of that space. And so you value your life force and you value your time and energy. And so there's a value of exchange that happens, and that you hold that boundary of expecting an exchange for the value of your most, or a value of exchange for your most valuable asset, which is your time and your life force and your energy. That's a super important shift to make, and it's one that I see holds a lot of people back in that space of just the slight definition change of being fully of service, but also seeing myself as a service, and knowing the areas in which I can be of service to, and knowing the areas in which, well, this is where I'm a service. I'm still a service to humanity. I'm still a service to consciousness. I'm still a service to the people that come into my world. But there's a difference in the way in which my expectations of return are, if that makes sense.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, I think like we provide value, and we can be paid and or receive in so many different ways. So we can receive the love, the praise, the food, or many different things, or money, and so they're all just different forms of receiving. And it's really like, in a way, I guess, when you become a service, from what I'm hearing, is you're discerning like what you would like to receive in return for that service.
You're getting very, very clear. Again, going back to that banter of align the outputs of my energy within the vision of the inputs I want to receive. Right. So if I think about that from a holistic pillars point of view, community. So men's hub for me is community. So I give in those spaces without any expectation of return. I give my time there freely because I believe in the mission, I believe in the cause. And it's a space that I can do that in. When I'm serving an individual, there's a difference in a value there. That's my most valuable asset is my time. And so there's an exchange. And that exchange isn't always financial. I think this is one of the, like you're saying, one of the most important aspects to shift for people. There's that currency is just an energy. Money is just an energy. It's just a value of exchange that we've been super conditioned to tie all of our level of worth to. But realistically, it's just a piece of energy. And so the value of your exchange is what's important for you to do. So even when I'm serving, I might say that if I'm saying I'm serving others, there may be a point where where it's a valuable exchange, where it's just we do a time swap or a timeshare. This is something I recommend for anyone that's starting out in their journey of business or creating a life for themselves. Find other people who are at the same point in the journey as you are, that have a skill that you would love to have within your space and that require your skills, and do a value exchange and do a time exchange. That way you don't have to create funds to be able to pay someone to do it, but find those spaces and create value of exchange, and whether that's time, whether that's other assets, whatever it might be, whether it's knowledge, it's a great way to start out. And it's something that you still do throughout your whole creative life. But it's a very important distinction to make. And so, there's spaces. A great example, I guess, is there's like, I have a calling like 3 times per month. That's like a full 45-minute deep dive into someone's life. And there's nothing off the back of it. I don't sell them. I don't pitch them. It's just me. I just show up. And the reason I do 3 is because I used to love doing more of those. And I was like, well, I'm giving too much out here. I need to rein that in. How can I still be of service in this space without putting too much energy into it, without any expectation of return? Because that doesn't feed my family. That doesn't create what we need to create. So we structured that back into, okay, we'll do 3 of those. And so that's a way that I can still be of service in that space. And then where I need to be, I can see myself in that space of, okay, this is where I'm a service. And therefore, if someone wants to work with me in this capacity or have my time in that capacity, then there's a value that needs to be shifted so that we don't get this imbalance in the way in which our energy is working. And because that leads to burnout, that leads to all of those things where it's just depletion of you give, but you're not having anything in return. And that simple shift of service to a service is a shift that I've seen clients make on a call. And one client sign 4 people the next day. Like 20K days the next day. It's just like the simplest shift from an energetical way in which way we're showing up. And generally, like we were talking about before, the way we show up is what comes towards us. So,
yeah, thank you. So, if someone was watching this interview and is feeling stuck or powerless, what's one piece of advice you would give them?
Get super clear on your vision. Like, where are you going? Like, what does that look like? Have the vision's the anchor that keeps you pointed north in the storms of the resistance, right? It's the guiding light through resistance. It's what allows us to keep coming back to center. So get super clear on your vision, what that looks like 10 years, 5 years, 3 years, 1 year, 3 months, 1 week. Bring some structure to that, because then you've got something to move towards. And then life for me becomes very simple off the back of that. Anytime that there's a moment of resistance or you're feeling stuck, you just check back in with that vision. All right, cool. Is that still aligned? Yes. Does that still feel where I want to go? Yes. What's the most obvious next step for me to take towards that? How am I living my values? What are my values? What are my standards off the back of that? Am I living them? Yes. Okay, cool. Am I not living them? No. Okay, why? That's very simple for me. I've had that vision, take steps towards it. If you take a step away from it, just dive into the why. What's the part of me that's holding on to pulling me away from that? What's the part of me that feels more safe here, or it feels there's fear to move forward? So yeah, that would be my space. And we have a cool technique for that called the BOD framework. And it's just breathe, observe, and decide. Just breathe in, get past that fear response, get past those primal responses we've been talking about, get back into the body. Just observe the situation from the third person perspective, which we're wired to do from a rites of passage point of view. That's why we have spirit guides. That's why we have elders. That's why we have all of these things. They're tools in which our consciousness uses to put information in a third person. So we just observe, we receive that, whether it's journaling. Journaling is a great tool for putting things outside of ourselves and receiving it from a third person point of view. And then we just check in with the vision and we decide, we make a choice, because we always have that choice. We can choose to not step towards the vision. That's cool. But we also have to understand that we choose those results of that. And when you can be in that space, it becomes easier and easier to choose the vision because you understand how it makes you feel and you understand the results of that. And the more you do that, the more you step in alignment with your values, your standards, your vision, the less power you lose externally. The less stock you put in what others think, the less stock you put in receiving the validation or worth from other people, and you go, cool, I can give everything. I've got everything I need right here.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, I think that, especially that tip of just like that breath tip, it's something I tell people all the time, is one of the most simple things, right? It's like something we do every day, but you're just putting those 3 things together, like breathing, becoming aware of yourself, like pulling yourself into the present and looking at yourself a bit differently, and like relaxing your nervous system, and it just like that just shifts, hey.
Yeah, and it's like just bringing a little bit of intention to it too. So it's like there's a little bit of conscious intention there. And if it helps, like if someone's more primal, they connect more in a nature perspective, think of it like the eagle, getting out of the elephant energy, which is like the head down, marching through the jungle, doing the things, and just put yourself into that eagle energy and just see the field a little bit differently. All of a sudden you can see the destination, and so you can see the destination. So we no longer have fear. We know there's a path forward. We know there's a destination. And so the mind can let go a little bit. So there's different ways to do it. And that's one of the things that we try and really bring in across a number of different modalities, because so many people learn in different ways and they relate to different information differently. And so you can say the same, like those principles are the same things, they just relate in a different way to depending on what someone's journey has been. And when you can bring intention to that, it's really important.
Yeah. And so What's one thing that you would change about the world, and what's one thing that you think would empower the world?
Oh, great question. That's a great question. I think if people were taught, if people place a value on in regards to one thing that I'd like to see change the world, it probably answers both questions. But if people were taught that their lifetime and their energy is their greatest asset, they understood who they were, that would completely change the way in which people show up. Uh, people would be more intentional with where they put their time. They would be less focused on creating financial money sort of things and understanding at a different level, which would just shift a lot of survival and those modes that come through. And it'd be a pretty cool world to live in if there was a lot more focus on value of exchange. I think that'd be pretty cool. I guess one of our big visions and our 10-year vision is to have a completely outside the education system private school set up. And one of the things that we want to teach is teaching kids how to create from the heart from a young age, find what they love, and then help them specialize in that, help them become the best version of themselves in that space, whatever that looks like. So focus heart first, and then once you work out if you want to be a paleontologist, sweet, we'll bring in the people that can help you do that. If you want to be a travel person and do blogs, we'll bring in the people that can help you do that. If you want to be a doctor or a plumber, sweet, we'll help you be the best version of that. Oh, and that's our big vision, and that's what everything that we do feeds towards. Because I think it'd be a beautiful world to live in if people were creating from the heart.
Yeah, thank you for that. That last piece, it's interesting having concepts that you've had in your mind, like reflected back through other people too. I remember I believe I was actually in Esperance around that time, and I was having these similar concepts of like, wow, it'd be amazing if kids went to school and it was just all about inspired. Like, what are you inspired to learn? All right, here's someone who does that. Go and learn with them. Like, learn on the job, learn on the whatever. And I think that's really beautiful that that's something that you're bringing out. And also just to pull back into that empowerment piece. So like what I'm hearing is that the empowerment to help empower the world would be to share the wisdom and the knowledge of helping people find who they are. And then also just to reflect on that.
Yeah, absolutely. Look, I'm a big believer that but the wisdom comes from the lived experience. And so every single one of us is learning what they're here to learn to be able to share that for the collective and to share that wisdom. And so allowing people to see that is going to be so empowering, because there's like, I hear so many people say that I'm nobody or I'm nothing, and that I'm not here for anything. I just think that's the biggest load of crap. Millions of things didn't go right for us to choose to be here in this body. You think about how many things had to go right for us to be here. Your parents meeting, their parents meeting, their parents surviving wars, your lineage could have been wiped out in a second.
Mm-hmm.
There's a reason you're here. We all have a purpose. And so I think even just the realization of that allows someone to feel more empowered.
100%.
Even just the realization of, geez, I'm here for something. I've got no idea what it is, but I'm keen to find out. But I want to find out. Or I'm taking steps to find out, and whatever that looks like for them. And it may be that they're here to be employed by someone and help them create that vision in a way that is aligned with them and helps them think that they're making change in the world. That's sweet. Embody that, be empowered in it. There's nothing wrong with that. I hate when I get charged when I see people who are in the space of creating talking down or belittling employees. It's like you literally cannot do what you would like to do without having other people work for you. Like you're literally bagging on the people that you need to support your dreams. Right? So I think everyone's here for a different reason.
I think a beautiful story that I always come back through in that is, um, can't remember where the story comes from, but it's basically about this energy, and it was like a human, and then it was like got sunburnt, and it was like, oh, the sun's so much more powerful than me. I want to be the sun. And then it became the sun, and then it like got obscured by a cloud, and it went, oh, the cloud's so much more powerful than me. I want to become a cloud. And so it became a cloud, and then the wind blew the cloud. It's like the wind, and basically the story is that it goes back around, and it becomes the original person again, and realizes that like every single person, every single thing has the same level of value and or power in this world. And I think that's just something, as you were saying, is such a beautiful reminder to everyone, is like wherever you're at in your experience, there's also, yeah, you can appreciate yourself for being exactly who you are.
Yeah, yeah, and there's always someone that would love to be right where you are as well. There's always someone. We're all at different stages of the journey. There's always someone that knows more about a particular topic or a different modality or different has different experience or different lived experience, and so that's when you can bring that mindset and be curious with everyone. There's always gold to them.
Mm, powerful. All right. Well, I think we'll leave it on that note. So just the final piece is, what's something that you might like to offer, and how can people get in contact with you?
Yeah, awesome, man. Thank you for that. Look, if anything that we've spoken about, we haven't really spoken about the cacao stuff or vibrational gains or anything like that, but people can get in touch there. That's a beautiful medicine and a beautiful supportive brand as well. They can get in touch there. They can get in touch on my socials across Instagram, LinkedIn, Twitter. Can email me. We put all the links and stuff in the description for people if they want to reach out. But if you're in Australia and you want to catch up and have a cool conversation for a couple of hours, then as we're traveling around, then reach out to. I'm always down to chat with cool people and say hello. So we're going to be getting right around the country soon. So I'm looking forward to more of that.
Yeah, awesome.
Yeah, if I can offer anything, it's when we live connected to nature, we not only live more connected to the nature around us, but we come closer to the inherent nature within. And that inherent nature is a beautiful place to be. So do everything you can to cultivate that and put your energy in places that allow you to receive that energy back. Because that creates a beautiful loop. When we put that number one rule in nature, we give back more than we receive. And when we put in energy into areas that are aligned in that, they operate off that same principle. And so we receive back more than we gave. And then we can give again more than we give received. And it creates this beautiful, beautiful loop. So yeah.
Thank you, Luke. Thanks for this beautiful conversation. And yeah, we'll put
No,
the links. So if you want to reach out to him for any reason, there will be links in the YouTube description. So please do. And thank you for listening. Whoever
yeah.
whoever hears this, you were meant to hear this. There was a reason for
Yeah.
it.
Big love, man. Thanks for having me on.
Pleasure.